where we learned in a recent Jack Smith filing that a Trump campaign aide in 2020 allegedly urged supporters to riot at the ballot counting center. So I want to make sure that the senator can hear my question, which is, would you discourage the campaign from engaging in that behavior and from Trump supporters engaging in chaotic scene?
So let me answer that question a few different ways. So first of all, of course we discourage rioting. We do not riot. Nobody in this room and nobody in this movement is going to riot. Second of all, your question is about a Trump campaign staffer. And I'll tell you that if you get 1,000 people together, and the Trump campaign probably has a lot more than 1,000 campaign staffers, you're going to find somebody who's willing to say anything, especially in a leaked message or private communication. The idea that the Trump campaign, either in 2020 or 2024, is encouraging people to riot is disgraceful. Of course we're not doing that. And by the way, these fine people are law-abiding citizens who work and pay their taxes. They're not going to riot no matter what anybody says to them. And here's the final point. I think it's interesting that the media is so focused on a random message from a random staffer in 2020. If you want to talk about rioting, let's talk about the summer riots of 2020 that killed 20 people that the media seems uninterested in. Next question.
Hello, my name is Sasha Calver. I'm a reporter with the Michigan Daily. So, the University of Michigan, all campuses, has historically had some of the largest student voter turnout in the U.S. Why should students in Michigan cast their vote for the Trump Vance ticket? And additionally, how will your administration support students, specifically concerning gun violence, where you've rejected calls for tougher gun laws and bans on bump stocks? Essentially, why should students concerned about their safety on campus vote for you?
Yeah, so the first let's be honest here. I don't know if a Ohio State graduate is the best messenger to University of Michigan students. So I hope in fact, thank you, sir. Maybe we should just get we should get a clip of me saying something nice about Kamala Harris out to the University of Michigan, because then maybe they'd all vote for Donald J. Trump. If you just told them I was a Buckeye, like I'm always a little nervous about injecting myself into the OSU Michigan rivalry here. But I think that we all kidding aside, look, we all care about the country. And that's why I think every person in this room is going to help me make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. And it's in that spirit that I want to answer this question. If I'm a young person in Michigan, here's one thing that Donald Trump and I want to do. First of all, we want to make it easier for you to build a life and to have a good career and to have a good job in your home, not to ship all the good jobs overseas, but to build a great middle-class economy right here in the United States of America. I think that's something that matters to a lot of Michigan students. I think a second thing that matters to Michigan students is I don't want young people in this country to be permanently indebted because we built an economy that turns American citizens into paupers in their own country. I want them to be able to own a home, build some wealth for themselves, and start a family right here in the state of Michigan and do it. And do it because we've got smarter economic policies that are going to allow them to thrive. Michigan students, people who are, meaning at the University of Michigan and all across the state, because I know there's a lot of great universities in the state of Michigan, we are turning an entire generation of American young people into folks who don't have enough money to own anything. That is a terribly destructive direction for this country to go in. Donald Trump and I want you to be able to own a slice of your own country, and we're going to pursue economic policies that make that possible. That's what we're going to fight for every single day. And on the question about gun violence, what I've said is that 90%, upwards of 90% of the gun crime that's committed in this country is committed using an illegally obtained firearm. So my point is, making it unlawful to own that gun has not stopped 90% of these gun crimes. So what we've got to do is take some common sense security measures. And I think the best way to reduce gun crime in the United States of America, I think this is a statistical fact, is to lock up people who are committing violence against their fellow citizens. That's the most important thing. I'm going to butcher the statistics, so I don't want to give them exactly, but if you look, whether it's in Detroit or New York City, any of our major cities, and you look at the violence problem, it is always a very, very small number of people who commit the gross majority of violent crimes. So why don't we get back in this country, whether whatever your racial background is, whether you're rich or poor, get back to locking up that small number of violent criminals. It'll make everybody safer, everybody more secure, and it'll actually give people public safety. And I think that's the biggest way we can reduce violent crime in this country. Thank you. Next question.
Senator Vance and Coleman from MichiganAdvance.com. Detroit is 77% African American. The state is 14% African American. Why should African American Michiganders vote for the Trump Vance ticket?
Well, we've got a great number of Black Americans in this crowd right now. They could probably answer that question better than I could, but. Without calling everybody up here, because I'm a politician, I don't like to share the microphone with anybody as much as I like them. What I think they would agree with is, number one, Donald Trump wants to bring back public safety and an economy that brings prosperity for everybody. Good wages for good jobs. That's the Trump promise. And I think that's a great promise to Black families in Michigan and to everybody else. Here's something else. I mean, there is this idea in the media, and I don't know where it came from, that somehow Black Americans don't believe in public safety in this country. Well, we know whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, Black Americans do care about public safety in this country. They want to empower our law enforcement officers to do their job. Of course, do it respectfully and make sure we've got good relationships between police and community, but we can have a good relationship between police and the communities they serve while we lock up the violent criminals and keep everybody safe in the process. I think that's very possible. And look, I mean, the story of Black Americans, especially in the city of Detroit, is actually very similar to the story of Appalachian white Americans who came from West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. We moved to places like Detroit, Black and white together, because there were good jobs for people who were willing to work hard and play by the rules. And it wasn't always perfect, but for a generation in this country, people, Black and white, worked together, raised their families, built things in this country, and created prosperity for the entire country. And that was the story, by the way, in the steel mill that my grandfather worked in for almost 40 years. You had Black folks and white folks living together, working together, and they again, it wasn't always perfect, but it worked. You know why it worked? Because we had good jobs for people who were willing to work hard and play by the rules. The destruction of the manufacturing economy in the state of Michigan has been disastrous for Black Americans, and it's been disastrous for a lot of middle-class white Americans too. We can make things in this country again. We can build things in the United States of America again, and when we do, it's going to bring prosperity to Black and white alike. Next question.
Good afternoon, Senator Vance. My name is John Enoch from Avante Moda Magazine, and I'm a member of the local independent media here in Detroit, so hopefully I'll get a little safer reception. I'm a native Detroiter, and I think Michiganders are really worried about a lot of things during this election cycle, and I think a couple that I hear all the time is they're very nervous about their First Amendment and their Second Amendment rights. So the question is, what will the Trump administration do to guarantee the people of Michigan that their rights will be protected? And what's your view on those amendments? And then also, to what extent should social media companies, if any, be able to moderate and control what people say online if it's legal?
Yeah. So let me try to answer that question as completely as I can. Number one, I love the First and Second Amendments. There's a reason they're number one and number two is because they're the most important. But, you go back to the question the gentleman asked earlier about Black Americans and particularly what Black Michiganders have to gain from a Trump presidency. And if you look at the censorship